The America First movement has been defined as a pro-Trump, make America great again philosophy. There's also a stringent anti-war isolationist wing of the movement that takes its cue from a pioneer more than a decade ago, former presidential candidate Ron Paul.
Why do we have this automatic commitment that we're going to send our kids and send our money endlessly to Israel? So I think they're quite capable of taking care of themselves.
Today, the rhetoric has grown into a very anti-Israel, anti-Jewish tone, pushed by radicals with large followings on social media. Jackson Hinkle recently posted, quote, "Your taxpayer dollars are being sent to Israel so they can drop bombs on Palestinian civilians. Defund Israel." Another, named Stu Peters, writes, quote, "Israel is now bombing Christian churches. They are of their father, the devil." Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes, who visited Mar-a-Lago and clings to the America First agenda, wants to see an Israel last approach.
It is a repugnant and evil government that is led by the Jewish state that is about to commit perhaps the worst atrocities in this century. I'm calling on all Christians and Catholics, I'm calling on all America First supporters to pray for the people of Gaza and also to get the word out. Hashtag Gaza genocide, it's what it is.
The America First movement is certainly not defined by this anti-Jewish rhetoric. Most supporters appear to stand with Israel, although one visible group has stirred controversy. Lauren Chen, a contributor to Turning Point USA, called Nick Fuentes' comments a more balanced and rational take on Israel-Palestine than the entire political class. Founder Charlie Kirk also raised eyebrows when he seemed to suggest that Israel may have been somewhat responsible for the surprise attack by Hamas.
I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question.
Conservative writer Eric Erickson responded with an article entitled, "Why does Turning Point USA keep pushing anti-Semitism?" saying, quote, "We've got the leader of Turning Point USA suggesting the leader of Israel knowingly allowed mass murder and employees promoting anti-Semites." This isolationist anti-war wing maintains that raising questions and concerns about blindly supporting Israel is not anti-Semitic at all. They see it more as government distrust.
The United States has been propping up the military-industrial complex in Israel to militarize them since they've created Israel, and so I don't agree that we should be giving them more money for bombs and guns and stuff like that.
We have problems right here on the border, and I think they should really rectify that first.
That's a sentiment popular conservative figure Candace Owens echoed recently, saying, quote, "America's priority should be defending America's borders, not the borders of overseas nations. Not a single foreign nation that we financially support has offered to help defend our southern border, so no, I won't be manipulated into thinking that it's our duty to defend theirs." While some may see that as anti-Israel, movement members take the America First moniker literally. Case in point, Tucker Carlson, who questioned fellow conservative Ben Shapiro recently, asking why there wasn't the same outrage over American overdose deaths as there's been about what happened to Israel. Well, that angered the Jewish Shapiro.
It is not alike for drug smugglers to smuggle drugs over the border, which someone then takes and shoves into their arm and then they die of an overdose. That is not the same thing. I promise you, it is not the same thing as a terrorist breaking into your home and murdering your children in their beds in front of you and dragging your wife off to be raped in Gaza. That is not the same thing. Pretending that it is immoral. It's a moral blight. It's idiocy. It's just moral stupidity at the highest level.
All of this shows that while Democrats battle problems of anti-Semitism on the far left, conservatives within the America First movement are having their own issues about views towards Israel as well. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
And here with us now is Eli Kohanim, former U.S. envoy to combat anti-Semitism and a CBN News contributor. Eli, thank you so much for joining us. We just heard in David Brody's piece some of the arguments being made that the U.S. should focus on its own security and limit support to Israel. What do you think when you hear something like that?
Matt, thanks for having me on. I think it's a very specious argument. People are missing the boat about what's going on right now. When Hamas attacked Israel and committed these atrocities on October 7th, it was certainly a war on Israel, but it's a war on Western civilization. People need to understand that Hamas is a small terror group. It's not acting alone. It's directed, funded, and trained by the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is part of this new axis of evil. China, Russia, Iran. And this is really a global scale war on Western civilization, on the American-led international order. And these folks on the right who are saying that, the United States, in essence, shouldn't support Israel in this war, they're just really not understanding what's at stake here. And so, again, what we need to understand is right now we're in a moment just like the beginning stages of World War II and the Holocaust, where this is a moment of choosing between good over evil and choosing whether we're going to defend Western civilization or allow Western civilization to fall. Again, Hamas is just putting Israel as on the front lines, and Israel is just the first country on their list, but it's not the last on the list.
Ellie, you talk about that moment we're in now. We're still in the first stages of the Israeli response to Hamas. We've seen the death and destruction in Gaza, and that will more than likely continue as a ground invasion gets underway. The target is Hamas, but clearly civilian lives are not being spared here. Are you concerned that as this war goes forward, support will wane for Israel because we're seeing loss of innocent life?
I am very concerned about that. The Israelis are in a very tough situation. Again, you had atrocities, 1,400 Israelis massacred in one day, which is the highest number of Jews killed in one day since the Holocaust. And 80% of those massacred were tortured first. So Israel has no choice. They obviously need to retaliate against Hamas. They obviously need to eliminate Hamas in Gaza. And they're doing their best. They have for 3 weeks now told Gaza civilians to move from the north of Gaza to the south of Gaza, which is kind of like a demilitarized zone. And that's where the humanitarian effort is being directed to the south of Gaza. So Israel's doing everything it possibly can to try to avoid civilian deaths. And I also want to note for our audience that all the numbers that are coming out of Gaza in terms of how many civilians are killed are coming from Hamas. Okay, Hamas is in charge of the so-called health ministry in Gaza. So we have to be very weary of the numbers. But in any case, there's going to be Palestinian civilian deaths in Gaza. And there's really only one party responsible for this. It's Hamas. So I hope that all of us here are going to continue our support for Israel. We have to let President Biden, this administration, all of our elected officials in Congress know that the United States needs to stand steadfastly by Israel as she finishes this operation and takes Hamas out of the picture for forever, for good. They just cannot be allowed to exist any longer. And we also need to stand by Israel should we see Hezbollah join in as a second front, should we see the Iranian proxies in Syria join in. We may have a long haul ahead of us.
Ellie Kohanim, thank you so much for your time and for your insight.
Thank you.